I remember seeing Paul Watson break this about 5 months ago at prisonplanet.com. Since then, it's in the Chicago Tribune and El Paso Times, and I know our guys have put together a package that they can roll over as showing some of these mainstream headlines. But the CIA, just 3 days ago, it was confirmed, did go ahead and declare national security in this trial where the head of the Sinaloa, that's the #1 drug cartel in Mexico, who got caught by the Mexican government, has said, look, I have U.S. government immunity. And there's a photo of him. And the DEA and others came in to the court hearing, and they've now released a PDF of that on the federal government's own servers, where they go, yes, it's true. This guy works for us. He shipped narcotics into the United States. We ship guns into Mexico to knock out their competition. And then, of course, they have the side issue of then demonizing the Second Amendment. So the federal government is shipping tens of thousands of weapons into Mexico to certain cartels to wipe out cartels that aren't laundering their money through them. And what the head of the Sinaloa cartel has now claimed, he was the head of U.S. operations, so I guess #2, has now been confirmed. And there's just part of the federal affidavit where they're saying, yeah, he's been told he has immunity. But it's a good lesson not to serve the dark side, because they always burn their own minions. Now, let's turn a bit farther afield to Afghanistan. You've heard in the last 2 days there's rocket attacks, guerrilla attacks on the U.S. embassy in Kabul there in Afghanistan. And what's really happening is you've got tribes that have their own opium fields burned by U.S. forces, but then select groups are allowed to grow their opium. That's why troops go in and say, are you part of our group? And if you're not, they burn your fields. And so basically it's a drug war over $500 billion a year in opium. 92% of world opium production comes out of Afghanistan alone. Pre-invasion 10 years ago, only about 11%. So it's up, I don't know, 9-10-fold, close to that. And it's the same thing with Vietnam, opium production exploding into the U.S. These are wars over illegal drugs. You make them legal, you take the profit out, this situation ends overnight. And we've got a couple clips here. The first one is ABC News from a year ago, in case you're a new viewer and doubting us, whitewashing it. U.S. military is concerned. They don't like helping grow opium, protecting it, helping ship it out. And so they've spoken out. So the government's response is just throw it in everybody's face and go, okay, we're helping grow the opium. We're helping ship it out. Let's go ahead and move along. So here's that clip from ABC News.
The Taliban finances much of its operations by selling opium, which is grown from poppies, which are right now being harvested. So here's the question. Why are American troops now helping Afghan farmers grow that opium?
In western Kandahar, poppy farmers score, till, harvest their crop, and the Americans do nothing to stop them.
Oh, they give them the fertilizer.
U.S. soldiers greet farmers.
Can you show me which poppy field is yours?
They commiserate with farmers.
Because if it isn't part of our crew, we're burning it.
I'm very sorry for this field.
Don't pay cut. And, shut it down.
Better harvest next year.
And that's why soldiers ignore and encourage the farmers.
Yeah, ignore and encourage.
Farmers would blame the U.S. for their poverty and turn toward the Taliban.
If we secure them having a good harvest, now they're going to get paid for all their hard work, and then we can deal with the trafficking afterwards.
We can deal with the trafficking afterwards. The whole country's Taliban. It's a bunch of tribes, but they know Americans are dumb. It's like our media claims Al-Qaeda is based in Iran. Those are Shiites. They're arch enemies of the Saudi Arabian Wahhabists. But I don't know the soccer teams in Pakistan, do you? Just like we don't know who the players are over there. They just completely play us as idiots. But it got worse with Geraldo Rivera. You can watch the whole clip online. Just type in Geraldo Rivera, U.S. government growing opium. They give them the fertilizer, security, and then load it on and fly it here. And we'll deal with the trafficking when your dumb kid uses it. We'll throw them in a private prison owned by big banks that launder the drug money. Let's play that clip.
These troops have confiscated 10,000 pounds of opium before the profit reached the Taliban.
And in a sense, you're watching as this opium is being grown. I know it grinds at your gut.
Oh, yes, grinds.
How do you deal with it? What are you doing about it?
Well, frankly, this is a part of their culture. So while it might grind in my gut, it's what they do. We provide them security, we're providing them resources, and we're providing them alternatives.
And the Marines are doing the good thing. Dave, Clayton, and Allison, back to you guys in New York.
He just explains it better than we can ever read in any paper, what a dilemma it is with the opium trade.
Yeah, they make so much money off the opium per yard there. They make so much money compared to those other crops.
This is the group
so it
thing.
Sounds great in theory, and Geraldo says this predicament that these politicians have put these guys in.
Predicament.
Tell them, hey, make a lot less money than the heroin you could be making with the poppy.
And they can't destroy it.
Right.
Again, Pat Tillman wrote home about this. They had to kill him. Troops were calling me. We were covering it. That, yeah, we guard it. We give them the fertilizer. It's loaded on C-130, shipped to America. So the system said, look, we'll just throw it in your face. I was listening to Bloomberg Radio this morning, and they were going, yeah, Europe's imploding. We're setting up a banking dictatorship. Ha, ha, ha. But are Americans going to get concerned? And the host said, no, Americans are dumb. Most Americans don't have a passport and don't know where Europe is, and they began cackling like witches. By being ignorant, by thinking politics and the world doesn't matter, you become a willing dupe, a willing slave in this. You become a joke. And I know our viewers care. You're awake and informed, some of you more than I am. We've got to reach out to these sheeple, or none of us have any future. Speaking of somebody that stood up, LAPD detective who had witnessed narcotics trafficking, the CIA tried to recruit him, Mike Rupert, exposed the CIA back in the late 1990s, and his work and Gary Webb's work and others led to a congressional investigation where on C-SPAN the CIA admitted, yeah, we shipped cocaine into America.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time. Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying.
Well, there's Mike Rupert. You know, the good news here is when good people stand up, we do start reversing this course. But we're talking about trillions of dollars a year total in keeping drugs illegal. It's time to decriminalize. It's time to treat it like a disease. And then if people do want to be addicts, they get it cheap. They don't break in your house. More than 70%, the Justice Department admits, of crimes in this country are drug-related. It's time to decriminalize all of it. Treat it like the illness it is. That's not just the InfoWars Nightly News analysis. That's common sense. The bigger the drug war gets, the more drugs, the more crime, the more police state is on our streets, and now they're converting the police state over to the political commissar, political cops, arresting people like we showed last night for speaking out on street corners and handing out flyers. This is the opposite of freedom. It is pure tyranny.